midnight, we aren't allowed to go downstairs alone. The town I live in is nice enough. It's quiet, a little quaint. My dream has always been to move to the city when I get older. I want a life where things are busier, more exciting, more alive. Right now, I live at home with my parents and my twin sister. Both of my parents are underpaid teachers, so we live a modest life. We've never been spoiled, and we've always been told to work hard for every dollar. Having gratitude for everything we have has been instilled in us since childhood. My parents must have worked really hard to save money throughout the years because the house that I lived in as a teen was pretty darn huge. Our tiny little town in general is relatively prestigious. So I do my part to extract wisdom from my parents whenever possible because they clearly know how to win at life. But of all of the things that my parents ask of me and my sister, the one rule they are most stern about is if you're going downstairs after midnight, you have to bring someone with you. Ever since we moved into this house, they would remind us of that rule every chance that they got. They would randomly bring it up at the dinner table or right before we're off to school. Sometimes if they heard footsteps in the hallway at night, they would get out of bed and walk with us to wherever we were going in the house. The strange thing about it was that me and my sister never really had anywhere to go downstairs at night. Anyways, our rooms, the living room, kitchen, and everything else pretty much was upstairs. Upstairs just had a game room and some storage that we might need to pull out from time to time. But overall, I couldn't really think of a scenario where we would need to go downstairs at night. My sister and I would ask my parents about it sometimes. Why do we have this rule? And what happens if we break it? They'd usually deflect, change the subject, or tell us, we'll tell you when you're older. As I got older and older, the fact that my whole family slept upstairs in a 2-story house became weirder and weirder to me. I was curious about what exactly was going on. So fresh off my 20th birthday, I decided to conjure up some kind of situation where I would absolutely have to go downstairs after 12 a.m. And this is where things start to get crazy. But we're out of time, so like for part 2, through midnight, we aren't allowed to go downstairs alone. Part 2, so if you missed part 1, go back and watch that. The last thing I told you is I was gonna try to conjure up an idea that would have to get me to go downstairs after 12 a.m. As soon as it turned 12 a.m., I yelled to my mom, "Mom, I left my laptop in the game room and I have a paper due tomorrow." Lame excuse, I know. She was skeptical and pushed back a little bit, but finally she caved. We made our way down the small staircase and headed for the door that led to downstairs. But before my mother opened it, she turned to me. She said, "Okay, he's likely gonna latch onto me." What? Make sure I don't open the door to the backyard and that I'm with you at all times, okay? You can pull me if you need to. I thought she was kidding. She opened the door. Our downstairs area has another small living room, a small kitchen, and a hallway that leads to the game area. I had accidentally left my laptop in the game area, so when we entered, I immediately turned toward the hallway. I thought my mom would follow me. Instead, I saw her just standing there. She was shivering and jittery. Her gaze was fixed on the window in the kitchen. It's a big window with the blinds usually pulled up, and it looks directly into our backyard. I looked at my mom confused, and she continued her uninterrupted stare. Slowly, she started walking towards the door to our backyard. I started to ask, "Mom, what are you?" And that's when I saw him. He was pressed against the window from the outside. His face was obscured by the darkness, but I could see his eyes. They were wide open, wider than eyes should go. My mom just continued to walk towards the door. I grabbed her as hard as I could and pulled her back, all the way back to the staircase that led upstairs. And then I closed the door behind us. It took my mom a minute to snap out of it. It doesn't even end there. Like for part 3, I'm not allowed to go downstairs after midnight, and here's why. Part 3, if you missed part 1 and 2, go back and watch that. So the last thing I told you is that I pulled my mom back up the stairs and shut the door. It took my mom a minute to snap out of it. But she kept staring at the door to the downstairs area and even walked slowly toward it and tried to go back down. When she finally pulled herself together, I'm like, "What was that? What was that?" And she goes, "Did you get your laptop, honey?" Did I get my laptop? Mom, what was outside the window? My mom's reaction was super weird. A mix of annoyance, concern, and fear. But she responded. Terrible things happen when we talk about them too much. But as long as we go downstairs in pairs, nothing too bad happens. No one's let him in yet. And that was that. I tried to ask her more, but she wasn't having it. At this point, she was just flat out ignoring me. I had no idea what to do. I wanted to tell my sister, who was generally super carefree. But part of me thought that would only freak the hell out of her. I tried to bug my dad about it, but he completely deflected. The most he ever said was, "We just wanted to give you and your sister a comfortable upbringing." What? What is that supposed to mean? It's been 2 years since me and my mom went downstairs together after midnight. Since then, we've continued to follow the rule, and so far we haven't run into any problems. I've tried to convince them into downsizing and moving somewhere else. They just say stuff like, "This isn't how that works, dear. And as long as we play it safe after midnight, we'll be okay." That brings me to why I'm saying this now. My parents have been gone for a week visiting family in another state. And my sister left this evening to have a sleepover with one of her friends. I'm home alone for the first time in forever. I don't usually have my phone on me and it takes me like an hour or two at least to respond to text messages. Well, I just checked my phone and I have a text from my sister. Here's what it says. She sent this text message 2 hours ago. It's 10 minutes past midnight. I was attacked by a ghost. For those of you who don't know, I'm a professional ghost hunter. We were invited to investigate a bar where they had some spooky happenings. People in this bar have reported to see and be touched by spirits. Now I'm one of them. As we started the investigation, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. We tried to talk to the spirit through a spirit box and all it wanted us to do was go up to the attic. But another ghost actually warned us and said that the attic is home to demons and Hell's Corner. We went up and tried to figure out which corner was Hell's Corner. The ghostly presence started to become stronger and was trying to get us alone. It specifically told me that if I went to Hell's Corner, I had to go by myself. I decided I was going to do a solo challenge. A solo challenge is where when we're on our investigations, we go into the dark completely alone with only a phone camera. But this solo challenge was horrifying. We actually caught it all on camera, so that's on our YouTube channel. As I was sitting there alone in the dark, I started to say these taunting and terrifying things. Like, why would you leave her alone? Don't you love her? And then it grabbed me. I've never been as scared in an investigation as I was during this one. And you can try to say that it was all in my head, but what happened next to David was even more horrifying. You can watch on our YouTube channel. Something really weird happened to me at Target. Like, there might be something creepy going on there. It was late at night after work and I was getting a bunch of items. It wasn't all that busy, so things were going pretty smoothly. I had been shopping for about 30 minutes and my cart was almost full. There was just a few more items that I needed to grab. And I was in the last section that I needed to go to, the cold section. There was nobody else in the freezer section at all. I reached down to grab some whipped cream and I saw something move in the corner of my eye. It looked like something was leaned up against the items in this section of the store, but it was moving. That's when I realized there was a person back there. And this person wasn't wearing the typical red shirt and khakis of a Target worker. They were wearing all black. But the weirdest part is that they had a black ski mask on. I tried to ignore him and move further down in the aisle, but he moved with me. He was staring at me from the other side, but luckily I only needed one more item. But as I went to grab the last item, the ski mask guy shoved all of the merchandise at me through the freezer. I started to pick them up to put them all back, and the guy took off running, so I decided I was going to tell a Target employee about what was going on. I found an employee and she said that there's some back doors that sometimes kids sneak through or whatever, so she would go tell them to leave. She went in the back and then came back out and said she couldn't find anybody and that they must have left. So I continued shopping. I finished my shopping and left, not expecting to ever see that man again. But about a week later, I went back to Target, my normal grocery shopping a week. I did my grocery shopping, everything was normal, I checked out and I started driving home. On the way home, I saw a figure jump out from behind a bush. And it was the same man in the same outfit with the same ski mask. I didn't return to Target for 2 weeks, but when I did, things got even weirder. Something scary is going on at Target. This is part 2. If you missed part 1, go back and watch that. So a few weeks later, I returned to the same Target. I get my groceries and I drive home and nothing happened. I start unloading my groceries and I had to park on the street by my house. So I'm starting to unload the groceries and I'm on the street and I noticed that there's a car parked like really close to me that also just pulled up. First, I thought that the car was empty, but then I saw something move in the back passenger seat. Someone climbed up to the front seat. When I tell you my jaw dropped, it was the freaking guy in the ski mask. At this point, this is way too close to my house. Like, this is borderline a stalking scenario. And he was just staring at me. He opened his door. I'm like stuck in shock at this point. He starts walking over to my car and that's when the panic sets in. So I lock my car doors. Then he tried to open my driver's side door. When he realized it was locked, he just pressed his face against my driver's side window. I started yelling at him to go away, leave me alone. I put my car in reverse and started backing up, and this guy just held onto my car. Finally, he let go and he ran back to the car that he came from. I took off down a side street because I couldn't go home, then he would know where I live. When I was sure that I lost him, I returned home. I haven't been to Target since.